The first thing people noticed about Briarwood wasn't the silence. It was the way sound behaved wrong. Footsteps didn't echo the way they should. Doors didn't slam, they sighed. Even the wind felt careful, like it was afraid of waking something up. The town sat 30 miles off the nearest highway, tucked between dying cornfields and a stretch of forest the locals called Blackroot, not because of trees, but because nothing ever grew right there. You didn't pass through Briarwood. You either stopped or you disappeared. Ethan Cole realized at the moment his phone lost signal, and the GPS calmly announced, "You have arrived," even though all I could see was an empty two-lane road and a rusted sign leaning sideways. "Welcome to Briarwood. Population, 1,102. The number looked freshly painted. That bothered him more than it should have. "Yeah," he muttered to himself, fingers tight on the steering wheel. "This is a mistake." Ethan had said that exact sentence 3 times already. Once when his editor pitched the assignment, once when he packed his bags, and once when the rental car clerk paused a little too long after hearing the town's name. But here he was anyway. A freelance investigative journalist doesn't turn down a story like this. Not when 3 families vanished over the past 2 years. Not when every disappearance happened without signs of struggle. Not when the town refused outside investigators and labeled it private matters. And definitely not when his career was hanging by a thread. The road curved sharply, trees closing like they were leaning closer to listen. Briarwood emerged slowly, almost shyly. Old diners, a church with boarded windows, houses that looked lived in but oddly untouched, lawns trimmed too evenly, porches swept too clean, like a movie set after everyone went home. Ethan parked near the town square, if you could call it that. A dry fountain sat in the center, filled with dead leaves and something dark at the bottom that looked suspiciously like old stains. He stepped out of the car, and the air hit him, thick, damp, smelling faintly of metal and wet soil. Someone was watching him. He felt it instantly. Across the street, a woman stood outside a bakery that didn't seem open. Late 40s, tight bun, floral dress from another decade. She smiled when their eyes met, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Afternoon," she called out. Her voice carried too clearly. "Hey," Ethan replied, forcing a casual grin. "You know where I can find a motel around here?" She tilted her head. "We don't get many visitors." "I notice." Another pause. "Too long." "There's a boarding house," she finally said. "The Hawthorne. You want to stay there." "Why is that?" Her smile widened just a fraction. "Because everywhere else is full." Ethan glanced around the empty street. "Sure it is." She didn't laugh. Instead, she stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You hear from missing folks?" The words landed heavy between them. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "I'm a journalist." Her eyes flicked briefly to his car, then back to him. "That won't matter." "What won't?" "You'll see." Before he could ask anything else, she turned and went back inside the bakery, locking the door behind her. Ethan stood there, heart thudding, trying to convince himself he wasn't already in over his head. The Hawthorne boarding house loomed at the edge of town, half swallowed by shadow even in broad daylight. It was a 3-story Victorian monstrosity with peeling white paint and a porch that sagged like a tired spine. The bell above the door rang when he stepped inside. The smell was wrong, lavender attempting to mask rot. A woman sat behind the front desk, knitting something dark and thick that didn't quite look like yarn. She didn't look up. "Checking in," Ethan said. She stopped knitting. Slowly, she raised her eyes. Pale, almost gray. "Name?" "Ethan Cole." She wrote it down without asking for ID, without asking how long he planned to stay. "Room 307, she said, sliding a heavy brass key across the desk. "Curfew's at 10. He frowned. "Curfew? Town rules." "I'm not a kid." She finally smiled. "No, you're not." That smile felt like a threat. The room was bigger than he expected. Too big. The walls were covered in faded wallpaper depicting forests and animals that didn't quite resemble anything real. A single window overlooked the woods behind the house. There were scratches on the inside of the window frame. Deep ones. Ethan dropped his bag, pulled out his recorder, and spoke quietly. Day 1. Briarwood, Indiana. Something's off. Locals clearly hiding something. Boarding house feels like. A knock cut him off. He opened the door to find a girl standing there. Early 20s, leather jacket, smudged eyeliner, like she'd slept in it for days. "You're the reporter," she said. "Depends who's asking." She smirked. "Name's Lily. Don't trust anyone here." "Well, that's comforting." She glanced down the hall, then stepped closer. "You should leave." Already, before nightfall, Ethan studied her. "You gonna tell me why?" Her jaw tightened. "Because nobody who digs too deep gets to leave. Not ho." "That sounds dramatic." "You'll hear screaming tonight," she said flatly. "Everyone does their first night. And tomorrow morning, no one will talk about it." She turned and walked away before he could stop her. Night fell fast in Briarwood. Too fast. By 9:30, the town was dead silent. No cars. No TVs. No insects. Ethan sat on his bed, recorder in hand, heart beating louder with every passing minute. Then, at exactly 10:07 p.m., a scream tore through the air. It wasn't distant. It was close. Female. Raw. Desperate. Ethan shot to his feet, rushing to the window. The sound came from the woods behind the house. Another scream followed, then a third, cut off abruptly, like someone had slammed a door on it. He grabbed his jacket and ran for the door. The hallway lights flickered as he stepped out. Every door along the corridor was shut. Locked. He tried the stairs. They wouldn't budge. Then the whispering started. Not voices, not words, just breathing. All around him. The lights went out. In the darkness, something brushed against his arm. Cold, slick, wrong. Ethan screamed. And somewhere in the building, someone laughed. When the lights came back on, he was alone, back in his room. The door locked from the outside. His recorder lay on the floor, still running. Playback showed nothing, except one line at the end, spoken in a voice that wasn't his. "Welcome home." Ethan didn't sleep. That wasn't a metaphor. It was a fact, like gravity or blood. He sat on the edge of the bed until sunrise. Fully dressed, boots on, recorder clenched his fist like it might save him if things went bad again. Every time his eyelids dipped, the whispering crept back in soft, wet breaths crawling along the inside of the skull. When morning finally came, it didn't feel earned. Sunlight bled weakly through the window, gray and anemic. The woods outside looked closer than they had the night before. Branches pressed toward the glass like fingers. Ethan stood slowly, muscle stiff, every nerve wound tight. The scratches on the window frame were deeper than he remembered. No, he corrected himself. They were fresh. Downstairs, the Hawthorne boarding house was alive in the way cemeteries sometimes are. People moved quietly, avoided eye contact, spoke in murmurs that died the second Ethan entered a room. He caught fragmented conversation too soon. He shouldn't be here, it knows now. The woman at the desk, Mrs. Hawthorne, he assumed, poured herself tea that smelled nothing like tea. "Rough night?" she asked without looking up. "You hear the screaming?" Ethan said. She stirred slowly. Briarwood is an old place. Old places make noises. That wasn't a noise. Her spoon stopped. "You should eat breakfast," she said. "You'll need your strength." "For what?" "For staying alive." She smiled again. That same thin, knowing smile. Outside, the town pretended nothing happened. The bakery was open now. The woman from yesterday served customers with cheerful efficiency. Kids waited for a school bus that never seemed to arrive. A man washed the same clean truck over and over, his hands shaking. Ethan pulled out his recorder and started asking questions. Nobody answered, not directly. People dodged, changed subjects, smiled too much. One guy, a mechanic with oil-stained hands and dead eyes, finally leaned in close and whispered, "You shouldn't record here." "Why?" "Because it listens." Ethan laughed, sharp and humorless. "Everyone keeps saying that. What the hell is it?" The mechanic straightened, face blank again. Have a nice day. By noon, Ethan had exactly nothing usable. No quotes, no admissions, no evidence. Just fear. Thick, choking fear hanging over everything like humidity before a storm. He ducked into the diner on Main Street, desperate for caffeine and something normal. The place looked frozen in time. Vinyl booths, cracked linoleum, a jukebox that hadn't worked since Reagan. Only 2 other customers sat inside. And Lily, she slid into the seat across from him before he could say a word. "You didn't listen," she said. "You didn't explain," he shot back. She studied his face, eyes flicking to his neck. "It touched you." Ethan's stomach dropped. "How do you—" "Your skin's bruised," she said quietly. "That's how it marks you." "What is it, Lily?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Not here." She paid for his coffee without asking and stood. "Walk with me." They headed toward the edge of town, past houses that leaned inward like they were gossiping. The woods loomed ahead, darker in daylight than they had any right to be. "My sister disappeared 2 years ago," Lily said. "Her name was Mariah." Ethan slowed. "One of the missing?" She screamed. Lily said, "Just like you heard last night." "What happened to her?" Lily stopped walking. "They say she left town," she said, "that she ran off. But people don't leave Briarwood." "Why not?" "Because Briarwood doesn't let them." She finally looked at him. Really looked. "You ever hear of a place that feeds on guilt?" Ethan frowned. "You mean metaphorically?" "I mean literally." They reached a clearing at the edge of Blackroot Forest. In the center stood something that didn't belong there, a stone structure half buried in vines. Not quite a well, not quite an altar. Symbols were carved into it. Old ones, scratched deep, like whoever made them didn't trust shallow cuts. "This is where it started," Lily said. "Back in the 1800s. Town founders made a deal." "With what?" "Doesn't matter," she said. "Only that it answered." Ethan circled the structure, recorder running. "What kind of deal?" "They offered a confession," Lily said. "Their worst sins, their secrets. In exchange, it kept the town alive. Prosperous, safe. And now it's hungry." A sound came from the woods. Low, wet, curious. Lily grabbed his arm. "We shouldn't be here." Too late. The temperature dropped instantly. Ethan's breath fogged as shadows shifted between the trees, stretching wrong, bending toward them. He felt that same presence from the hallway, close, intimate, like a breath against his ear. "Tell me," it whispered. Ethan staggered back. "You hear that?" Lily nodded, tears in her eyes. "It knows you now." They ran. Back in town, Lily shoved him into an abandoned church and slammed the door. Sunlight filtered through broken stained glass, painting the dust in violent colors. "It chooses someone every cycle," she said, pacing. "Someone new, someone broken." "Why me?" She stopped. "Because you're running from something." Ethan froze. "That's bullshit." "You came here desperate," Lily said. "Career collapsing. Reputation shot. You need the story." He clenched his jaw. "That doesn't make me guilty." "It doesn't need guilt," she said softly. "Just truth." That night, the screaming came earlier. Louder. Closer. Ethan stood at the window again, heart hammering. This time he saw it. A figure dragged through the woods, limbs jerking unnaturally, mouth open in a soundless plea. Then silence. Morning came with sirens. The town gathered near the fountain. A body lay covered with sheet. Ethan recognized the boots. The mechanic, someone whispered. He confessed too much. Mrs. Hawthorne crossed herself. Ethan's recorder captured everything. That night, the whisper returned. Clearer now. "Where are you hiding, Ethan?" He didn't answer. The walls began to bleed. Ethan woke up choking. Not on air, on memory. His hands clawed his throat as he sat upright, lungs burning, heart slamming so hard it felt like it might punch through his ribs. The room smelled like copper and damp stone. The walls were clean again. No blood, no stains, like it had never happened. He checked the recorder with shaking fingers. The last file wasn't his voice. It was crying, low, broken, male, and underneath it, that same whisper, closer now, almost affectionate. Liar. Ethan shut it off. Downstairs, the boarding house was tense in a new way. Not quiet, controlled. Like everyone had agreed, silently, not a crack. Mrs. Hawthorne stood by the door, dressed in black, handing out small white flowers to the residents as they left. For morning, she said. Ethan took one. The petals felt warm. Mechanic's funeral? He asked. No, she replied. His offering. The word stuck to him all day. The body was gone by noon. No police. No coroner. Just erased. The fountain had been scrubbed clean, though the water still wouldn't run. Kids played nearby, laughing too loudly, like they were trying to drown something out. Ethan found Lily behind the church again. She looked wrecked, eyes red, hands shaking, guilt pouring off her in waves. You knew, he said. She didn't deny it. You knew he was next. He wasn't supposed to be, she snapped. It doesn't always work like this. Work like what? Ethan demanded. Human sacrifice? Lily flinched. Don't say it like that. How should I say it? She looked away. Confession keeps it fed. Most of the time. Most? She swallowed. Sometimes it wants more. They stood there in silence, the broken church looming behind them. You lied to me, Ethan said. Yes. Why? Because if you'd known everything, she said quietly, you would have left. That was the point. No, Lily said. You can't leave once it sees you. That night, Briarwood gathered. No announcement, no sirens, just a pull, a pressure in the air that guided everyone toward Blackroot Forest like cattle to slaughter. Ethan followed, recorder hidden under his jacket, heart pounding. Torches lit the clearing. The stone structure glistened now, slick with something dark and fresh. The symbols seemed deeper, wider, like they'd been gnawed open from the inside. Mrs. Hawthorne stood at the front. So did the baker, the mechanic's wife, the school teacher, everyone. This cycle is unstable, Mrs. Hawthorne said. Her voice carried authority, ancient and practiced. It's restless. A murmur rippled through the crowd. We need a truth strong enough to bind it. Ethan felt Lily tense beside him. Mrs. Hawthorne's gaze swept the crowd, then stopped. On Ethan. There you are, she said warmly. We were wondering when you'd stop pretending. Ethan's mouth went dry. Pretending what? That you're just a visitor. Hands closed around his arms. He fought. Hard. But fear weakens the body, and the town had been afraid for generations. They dragged him forward, toward the stone. Lily didn't move. Lily, Ethan gasped. You said, I tried to warn you, she whispered. Tears streamed down her face. It needs someone new, someone loud, someone full of lies. The ground beneath the altar pulsed. Something shifted inside it. Confess, Mrs. Hawthorne said gently, and maybe it lets you live. The whisper rose from the stone, no longer subtle. Tell them. Ethan laughed, a cracked, hysterical sound. You think I don't know how this goes? The crowd leaned in. His chest hurt. His head buzzed. I didn't come here just for a story, he said. The whisper purred. I killed someone. The forest went dead silent. 5 years ago. Ethan continued, voice shaking now. Drunk driver. Hit and run. She died on the road. I saw it happen. I felt the bump. Lily covered her mouth. I told the cops I didn't see anything, Ethan said. Build a career exposing other people's secrets. Truth sells better when it's not yours. The stone shuddered. The air split open. Something rose. Not a monster, not really. A shape made of mouths and memories. Faces stretched across its surface, screaming silently. Some familiar, some not. Mariah's face surfaced for a second, then vanished. It's not enough, Mrs. Hawthorne said, voice trembling. The thing leaned closer to Ethan. That's not the worst one. It whispered. Ethan broke. She was pregnant, he sobbed. And I drove away. The thing screamed. The forest convulsed. Trees bent inward. People fell to their knees. Blood ran from noses, ears, eyes. The stone cracked, and then it stopped. The thing sank back into the earth, satisfied, full. Ethan collapsed, gasping alive. The town exhaled as one. Mrs. Hawthorne approached him, eyes gleaming. "You see? Balance." Ethan looked up, hollow. "You're monsters." She smiled sadly. "So are you." They let him go, back to the boarding house, back to his room, alive. That was the punishment. Later that night, Lily knocked on his door. "You should leave now," she said, "before it gets hungry again." Ethan nodded slowly. As she turned to go, he asked, "Did it take your sister?" She paused. "No." "What did?" She looked back, eyes dark. The town. And somewhere beneath Briarwood, something stirred, already craving the next truth. Ethan packed fast, not because he thought speed would save him, but because standing still in Briarwood felt like volunteering. Every sound in the boarding house had sharpened. Floorboards creaked like joints. The walls hummed, low and constant, like something breathing behind him. He shoved his recorder, laptop, clothes into his bag, and didn't look back. The hallway was empty. Too empty. Mrs. Hawthorne's desk sat abandoned. The half-finished knitting sprawled across it like spilled organs. The front door stood open, swaying gently, inviting. Outside, the town looked wrong in daylight. Not hostile, not threatening. Relieved. People waved as Ethan passed. Smiled. A man tipped his hat. The baker handed out free bread. The air felt lighter, cleaner, like a storm had just passed and washed everything bright again. Ethan's stomach turned. They fed it, and now they were grateful. He reached his car and froze. The tires were slashed. All four. Clean cuts. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." A voice behind him answered calmly. "You weren't supposed to try that yet." Lily. She stood a few feet away, arms crossed, jaw tight. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks, and someone who had slept very well for years. "You did this?" Ethan asked. "I did," she said. Rage surged up his spine. "You said I could leave." "I said you should," she corrected. "That's different." "Why?" His voice cracked. "Why help me at all if you're just another one of them?" She hesitated. Then, "Because I need you alive." That chilled him more than any whisper. They walked, not toward the forest, not toward town, toward the old hospital at the edge of Briarwood, the one Ethan had noticed but never approached. Windows boarded, doors chained, a building everyone pretended didn't exist. "This place is where it changed," Lily said, "where confession stopped being enough." Inside, the air was thick with mold and antiseptic ghosts. Wheelchairs lay overturned. Paper charts littered the floor, names scratched out violently, like someone tried to erase people from history. "This used to be an asylum," Lily said, "before they called it mental health care." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "Let me guess. Experiments." "Volunteers," she said. That's what they called them. They reached a room deep inside, hidden behind a rusted steel door. Lily pulled out a key. "My sister was here," she said. "Not taken. Kept." Inside the room were photographs. Hundreds of them. Polaroids, pinned to corkboards. Men, women, teenagers. Each photo showed the same thing. People mid-confession. Crying, screaming, begging. And behind them, barely visible, the thing, not fully formed. Learning. Ethan's blood ran cold. It wasn't always like this. "No," Lily said. "It was smaller, dumber. Then the town figured out how to refine it." "How?" "By recording it." Ethan looked down at his recorder. "No," he breathed. "It learned how to listen better," Lily said. "How to keep truths. How to replay them." "That's why you let me record," Ethan said. "That's why you pushed me." "Yes, you used me." "I needed an outsider with a voice," Lily said. "Someone would latch on to." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Congrats. You got your wish." She met his eyes. Not yet. That night, Briarwood gathered again. But this time, not at the altar. At the hospital. The town surrounded the building. Torches flickering, faces tense. Mrs. Hawthorne stepped forward. "You're risking everything," she called out. "It needs him." "No," Lily shouted back. "It needs truth. All of it." Ethan realized then what she was planning. "You want me to expose the town," he said quietly. "I want you to burn it," she replied. Before he could respond, the whisper exploded to the air. Furious now, panicked. Mine. The ground shook. Windows shattered. The thing surged through the hospital walls. No longer subtle, no longer patient. Faces peeled off its surface, screaming. Ethan raised a recorder and started talking. Names, dates, crimes, cover-ups, every disappearance. Every lie the town had swallowed to stay alive. The thing convulsed. The townspeople screamed as memories tore free from them. Confessions ripped out like organs. The forest screamed back. The altar shattered miles away. And for the first time in Briarwood's history, the cycle broke. Silence followed. Real silence. Mrs. Hawthorne collapsed to her knees. The thing shrieked once. Thin, starving, and imploded into nothing. Morning came hard and bright. Police cars lined the streets. State investigators. News vans. Briarwood didn't resist. There was nothing left to protect them. Ethan stood on the edge of town as they loaded Lily into an ambulance. "Did it work?" he asked. She smiled weakly. "Ask me in a year." He drove away on intact tires. For the first time, the road didn't pull him back. Weeks later, his article went live. It broke everything. Careers ended. Arrests followed. Briarwood emptied out. Ethan won awards. He didn't attend. Some nights, alone in his apartment. His recorder turns on by itself and plays a familiar whisper. Truth never dies. Ethan learned the sound of real silence the hard way. It wasn't quiet. It was absence, like something had been ripped out of the air and never replaced. His apartment in Brooklyn should have felt alive. Sirens, neighbors, traffic bleeding through thin walls. But at night, it felt hollow, like Briarwood had followed him home and hollowed the city out around him. He stopped sleeping again. Not because of nightmares, because of anticipation. The recorder sat on his desk, unplugged, batteries removed, wrapped in aluminum foil like some half-assed exorcism experiment. He hadn't turned it on in weeks. He didn't need to. It turned itself on. At 2:17 a.m. every night. Click. Static. Breathing. Ethan stopped trying to destroy it after the third time it reassembled itself. He smashed it once, hammered it into plastic shards, threw the pieces in separate dumpsters across the city. The next morning, it sat on his desk, whole, clean, warm to the touch, like a pet waiting to be fed. His phone buzzed constantly now. Emails, DMs, anonymous tips, confessions. People poured their sins into his inbox like he was a priest with a byline. At first, he told himself it was normal, that the article had opened floodgates. Then the messages changed. They weren't asking him to publish. They were asking him to listen. "I killed my brother. I watched her drown and didn't help. I like it when they're afraid." The words crawled under his skin. And worse, when he read them, he felt full. The night Lily died, the recorder played without static. Her voice was weak but calm. "You didn't kill it," she said. "You just moved it." Ethan slammed the recorder against the wall. It laughed, not out loud. Inside him, he tried to quit journalism, tried to walk away, delete accounts, shut doors. But every time he refused to listen, something bad happened. A source who begged him for a call jumped off a bridge. A woman whose email he ignored murdered her husband that same night. When Ethan listened, when he let them speak, when he absorbed the truth, it stopped. He became careful after that. Selective, responsible. That's what he told himself. The dream started next. Not memories, others' memories. Guilt bleeding into his sleep. He dreamed of hands around throats he'd never touched. Fires he didn't start. Children crying in rooms he'd never entered. And always, always, The same whisper beneath it all. This is what you're good at. The first time he recorded himself again, his hands shook. Ethan Cole, he said into the mic personal log. The air in the room thickened instantly. He swallowed. I think Briarwood wasn't place. I think it was a prototype. The recorder hummed. It didn't need the town, Ethan continued. It needed a filter, a witness, someone to collect truth and give it shape. His chest tightened. I think that's me now. The recorder clicked off. Satisfied. Months passed. The world got louder, uglier. Confessions went viral. Ethan's name became synonymous with exposure, with ruin. Politicians fell. CEOs vanished. Cult leaders burned. People called him a hero. They didn't see his eyes. Didn't hear the whispers when the cameras were off. One night, unable to stand it anymore, Ethan went live. No announcement. No warning. Millions watched. There's something I need to confess, he said, staring straight into the camera. I didn't save anyone. I replaced something. The comments exploded. This thing feeds on truth, Ethan continued, and I've been feeding it. The lights flickered. Behind him, the air bent. Faces surfaced in the dark reflection of his screen. You want to stop it? He asked the audience. Then stop lying. The whisper screamed. The stream cut. In the aftermath, servers crashed worldwide. Blackouts rolled across cities. For exactly 7 minutes, no digital device worked. 7 minutes of silence. When systems came back online, Ethan Cole was gone. No body, no note, just a single audio file uploaded everywhere at once. It contained no words, just breathing. And if you listen closely, late at night, alone, you can hear it too. Waiting, hungry, because the truth never needed a town. It just needed a voice. And now, it has yours. The audio file spread faster than anyone could stop it. It didn't have a title, no metadata, no author, just a waveform that looked wrong, too symmetrical, too deliberate, like something pretending to be random. Tech blogs argued about it. Scientists dissected it. Conspiracy forums baptized it with names. None of them mattered, because people listened. At first, nothing happened. Then the listening changed. People didn't just hear breathing anymore. They heard pauses, rhythms, the illusion of intention. Some swore they heard their own name buried under the static. Others said it felt like the sound was listening back. A man in Ohio locked himself in his basement and confessed to a murder he'd gotten away with for 20 years, live, on a gaming stream, sobbing, shaking, begging the audio to stop looking at him. A teenager in Seoul collapsed in class after hearing it once, screaming that it knew what he'd done to his sister. Priests stopped playing it. Therapists refused to analyze it. Algorithms couldn't categorize it. And everywhere, people started confessing, not publicly, privately, into phones, laptops, voice notes deleted seconds after recording, whispered apologies into dark rooms, secrets dragged out of throats like splinters. The world grew quieter. Crime dropped. So did births. So did laughter. Because guilt, once acknowledged, didn't leave. It settled. It rooted. Somewhere beyond place and time, Ethan understood. He didn't have a body anymore. Not in the way bodies mattered. He existed in pauses between sound waves, in the moment before someone decided whether to speak or stay silent. He wasn't the thing. He was its shape. Every confession fed it. Every truth sharpened it. And through him, it learned something Briarwood never taught it. Scale. The entity no longer whispered. It waited. Governments tried to suppress the file, burn servers, cut networks. It didn't matter. Someone always had a copy. Someone always needed to listen. Because once you hear it, silence feels dishonest. Years passed. History textbooks called it the quiet decade. People stopped asking what happened to Ethan Cole. They stopped asking a lot of things. One night, a woman sat alone in her kitchen, phone in hand, heart pounding. She hadn't committed a crime. Not really. Just a choice she regretted. A door she didn't open. A call she didn't return. She pressed play. The breathing filled the room. She closed her eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And somewhere, something smiled. Not because she was forgiven, but because she was heard. And that was enough. The truth didn't end the world. It just taught her how to starve.